Now more than ever, there's little to separate Oppo and OnePlus's flagships, especially with them sharing much of the same hardware, the software and the features. But how do you pick between the OnePlus 13 and the Oppo Find X8 Pro? Should you save money and go for the OnePlus, or spend a bit extra and get the Oppo? I'm Cam Bunton, this is Trusted Reviews, and in this video, I'll answer those questions. Look at these two phones side by side and there are clearly some similarities, although still plenty of differences to consider when deciding which to stump up your cash for. One of the best things about the OnePlus phone is the soft, grippy, leather-like material on the back. It's obviously not real leather, but it gives the phone a texture that's pleasant to hold and to use. Maybe even rub against your cheek. Certainly no judgment from me if you do decide to do that, it's pretty wonderful. And it's durable and won't wear thin and can be cleaned pretty easily as well. Where Oppo has it beat, I think, is in the general fit, finish and the precision of the build. And it's all in the subtle details, like how the curves in the glass on the front and the back more seamlessly flow into the rounded metal edges. OnePlus isn't quite at the same level there. Similarly, the camera unit on the back is placed right in the middle, so has a symmetrical feel to it, which I think looks much better than the off-center design of OnePlus's camera island. Oppo has a little extra functionality too in form of the camera button on the side. A double press launches the camera, and swiping left and right along the sensor zooms in and out of the picture. Overall size and weight are largely the same on the two, with little difference between them. We're speaking fractions of millimeters here. And as far as durability goes, the two phones share the same IP68 and 69 ratings, which means water resistance against being submerged or sprayed and also dust proof is all pretty much the same. But there was one weakness I noticed on the Oppo, and that's the glass on the front. It seems quite easy to scratch, and it might be that the 7i version of Gorilla Glass on this phone isn't quite as resistant to marking and scratches as it should be for a high-end device. In my own very unscientific testing, the OnePlus hasn't had those same issues. But without taking a scratching tool to the screen, I can't confirm objectively whether this is the case or not. In the end, it meant that when it comes to the design, the feel, and what it's like to use the phones and pick them up every day, it's the OnePlus that I would rather have in my hand. But the Oppo is nicer to look at. As with so many elements of these two phones, the display quality and the software are incredibly similar. You only need to look at the spec sheet to see why, and also remember the fact that Oppo and OnePlus phones largely have the same software these days. Both have a near enough 6.8-inch display, with the OnePlus being the tiniest bit larger and taking up more front surface space. It does have a more pixel-dense display too, featuring Quad HD Plus resolution at about 60 pixels per inch more than the Oppo. But you'll only see those if you enable the full resolution, and in my testing, I didn't really see much of a reason for doing that. Even in Full HD mode like the Oppo, it's sharp, clean and clear, although there is an element of crispiness you gain by cranking it up that the Oppo can't achieve. But the trade-off to get those finer lines and smoother curves is worse battery life, and that's a trade-off I wasn't bothered to make, given most mobile content and games rarely takes full advantage of all those pixels. Color and performance is very similar on both too. They can reach similar levels of brightness, support up to 120Hz refresh rates with the ability to change refresh at small increments. I genuinely found it pretty much impossible to separate them, apart from the extra sharpness in full resolution settings on the OnePlus. Both have an in-display fingerprint sensor too, with the OnePlus proving much faster and more reliable when it came to unlocking and authenticating. It's also in a more convenient position, a little further up the display, where the Oppo sensor is right near the bottom edge and a bit awkward to adjust your grip to use it. On the software side, when you scroll through all the settings or interact with any of the interface layers from the home screen, there's a very real sense that the Oxygen OS 15 and Color OS 15 software are pretty much identical. Apart from the odd difference in icon shape and design here and there in the menus, it's very hard to separate them. And that makes sense because the software comes from the same team within the company. There was more bloat installed on my Oppo unit in form of the Oppo app stores, but with those disabled and uninstalled, the two are inseparable, apart from the classic OnePlus splashes of red, white and black in the clock widgets and the lock screen clocks. Okay, so let's talk performance, and while again they are very similar here, I did spot some reasons for going with the OnePlus over the Oppo. albeit small ones. First off, the Snapdragon 8 Elite processor inside is that little bit more powerful, so when benchmarking it came out on top, and when subjecting the phones to intense gaming sessions it seemed to hold its cool just that little bit better. Realistically, for most people's use cases, casual gaming, social media and such, it'd be almost impossible to notice those benefits. So yes, OnePlus is technically better, but the MediaTek Dimensity 9400 in the Oppo is still incredibly powerful, and more than capable of handling the most demanding apps and games. Both phones can easily get me through a typical day with about 3 hours of screen time split between social media, reading, web browsing, gaming and camera usage. In fact, on most of those fairly light days I'd still have nearly half a battery left over, with the OnePlus just edging it, likely down to its slightly larger capacity and the processor that's less likely to heat and is a bit more efficient. But if you're a fairly light user, they could both be 2-day batteries for you. So again, not a massive difference. So let's move on. It's camera time. So again, while there are some very clear similarities in the cameras, this is also the area I found a few distinct differences. And a lot of it comes down to the consistency, or lack thereof, from the OnePlus phone. And this was something I noted in my review as well, and something I hope OnePlus can fix with an update, but its focusing was often unreliable when using the zoom camera, or the zoom function in the main camera, particularly in low light. Whether you're using it to shoot photos of something in the distance or a super macro shot of a close-up object, it would hunt and fail to focus a lot more often than the Oppo did. Take a look at the video side by side here where I'm zooming in and out at a basic test to figure out what was going on, and you can see that once the OnePlus gets into the zoom range, it just doesn't seem to want to focus at all, even when tapping to manually focus on a specific area. In the end, it meant a lot of those shots at 3 times, 6 times, even 2 times zoom, or in macro mode, I'd find either the picture from the Oppo was sharper and in focus, or the OnePlus would get there eventually after about 5 or 6 tries. The short version, it just took longer to get a usable photo from those zoom and macro shots than it did with the Find X8 Pro, meaning most of the time I went out to shoot, I'd rather have the Oppo with me. The other differences, which is surprising given the similar hardware and the Hasselblad color processing, mainly, most of the time I found that OnePlus's images tended to process with a bit more contrast. Where Oppo was lighter, a bit less contrasty and kept more of a realistic texture, the OnePlus was darker with a bit of over-sharpening creeping in to the point where objects didn't feel as authentic. Similarly, there were times with dark objects like mountains in front of a bright sky where the OnePlus produced images with a really visible halo or highlight line around the edge. Oppo's wasn't perfect here, but also nowhere near as visible. It's tamed those artifacts more successfully. The fact that the Oppo also has an extra zoom camera that can go to 6 times optical zoom makes a difference here too, although maybe not as big a difference as you might expect. Otherwise, they have very similar primary, ultra-wide and zoom lenses. At night time, the two again, very similar. I would advise though, don't shoot using night mode when it's really windy like it was when I went out, because they'll both struggle with motion blur, especially on the zoom cameras. However, with stable hands, they'll easily snap shots, drawing in enough light and detail to take good looking nighttime shots that don't get so bright that it looks like it's daytime. OnePlus again has a slightly more contrasty and over-sharpened image compared to the Oppo, so textures are softer, less edgy and more natural on the Find X8 Pro, but for the most part they're pretty similar here too. If the focus when zooming was more reliable, there would be very little to separate the two phones. Comparing 4K video footage, there are similarities again. Oppo seemed to struggle a bit more with lens flare, with videos seemingly having a lower depth of field than the OnePlus, but processing color detail, highlights and shadows was better. OnePlus was a bit overexposed at times and had seemed a tad out of focus, like I've mentioned already. Oppo's stabilization when walking and shooting was also stronger. In the end, if the OnePlus camera was better, it would be the phone I would recommend buying over the Find X8 Pro, especially given that it costs about £200 less, at least in the UK. But since I've had that inconsistent experience with the camera, if I was buying one of these two phones, it would be the Oppo. Because it's got that refined design, the better camera experience and all-round similar performance and software, it's the Find X8 Pro that I'm more drawn to out of these two phones this year. I'd say if you're trying to decide, get that one unless you don't really care at all about the zoom function of the camera or the camera in general, in which case you lose nothing really by saving money and buying the OnePlus 13. Let me know what you think of these two phones in the comments down below. You can grab me on social media. I'm at Cam Bunton in most places. My BlueSky link is down below. I'll see you again in the next one. Thanks so much for watching. Bye bye.